Hello, Garland Nixon here. I'm going to talk about this whole the DEI thing, the death of the Democrats, the death of Disney, the mainstream media, this virtue signaling stuff. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here, and it's fairly early in the morning on a Friday for me, but I get up early and hit the gym and get back in, and I'm all raring to go. So this is an interesting subject. This whole the DEI situation, the DEI story. Why is that? Well, let me just say this. Uh, I'm an ex-cop, and I got pigeonholed for a long time. For a long time, every time when I was doing a lot of media stuff, but they would call me for interviews in the Baltimore area whenever it was something um, related to law enforcement. Oh, a police officer shot somebody. Let's call Garland Nixon and get his thoughts on NBC 11 in Baltimore. And I would always say I want to talk about other stuff, right? People hate to get pigeonholed. Or, of course, something happened with black people. Let's call Garland and see what he has to say. He's a black person, right? And I get, you get pigeonholed if you're a woman, a black person, if you're for a cop, whatever it is. People say, you can only talk about certain things, and you have to take certain positions on it, right? So sometimes I think reactively, I'll avoid that stuff sometimes because I don't like being pigeonholed. I like to talk about everything, right? But today, let's go into this whole DEI thing, and I think it's important to talk about it for a couple of reasons. Number one, people who say I'm for or against DEI oftentimes don't define it, right? To me, I'm big on definitions. On what are we talking about? For two reasons. Number one, because I used to help write regulations with the Attorney General's office, and when I did, at the beginning of any law or regulation, you have to have definitions. If you say you can't do this, that, or whatever, you have to define the things that you're talking about in a law, because a person can challenge a law or a regulation based on the fact that it's too broad, it's undefined, you have a constitutional right to specificity, things of that nature. So you have to define things. And I'm big on and studying Zen. It's like, what's the difference between the words that we use to refer to things and that thing? What's the difference between the words and symbols, the letter or the number, the difference between that and what we're actually referring to? We get confused, as we say in Zen. We don't know the difference between the menu and the meal. You can't eat the menu. You can't get any nutritional value from the menu. The menu refers to the meal. You've got people order in a restaurant and they see a picture of their food, and their food comes in and they're upset because it doesn't look like the picture. They don't even taste it. They don't say, oh, it tastes delicious. They'll say, but it doesn't look like the picture. Well, you got to know the difference between the picture and the food, right? What are you referring to? The name of the food. You go to a restaurant and it says, a deliciously succulent, blah, blah. And you have this rosy definition, right? Description of the food. And when you get it, it's crap and it's nothing like it was described. Again, knowing the difference between the words and symbols that refer to reality in the world, and that reality and world that you're using the words or sounds or symbols to refer to, right? DEI. So people say I'm opposed to DEI or I'm in favor of DEI. What the hell is DEI? Did you ever stop to think about that? Actually defining it. What is it? What does it mean? So what I'll say is this. I can't say what it means to you. I can't say what defines it. I can say how I see it and how I interpret DEI, right? I'll start right here. My thoughts on the DEI thing is the term, the concept was brought up by the ruling elite, right? And it was I guess a modern day interpretation of what was the word? I forgot the term that was called. But anyway, it was supposed to make up for past sins, right? This particular group was historically damaged or hurt, and now somehow this is going to make up for past sins, right? And that's what the concept of DEI comes from, right? But when I look at DEI, I ask myself, when I look at anything, right, what are they doing? So what they're saying is this: DEI apparently is, as I understand it, if you've got 10 people who are involved in a project or company, whatever, right? That those 10 people should somehow reflect the diversity of our society, right? So if our society is 10% black, 10% Filipino, 10% whatever, right? Then in fact, then each one of those people should represent that group. Okay, so it doesn't take into context the mission. What is it that we're trying to do? We're trying to create a good movie, right? No, it doesn't take into context that you want the best possible movie. The argument here, the DEI argument is the representation of the groups is the goal of the project. We got to have a represent. We got 40% of the people are Latinos, and 20% of the people are black, and 18% of the people are Asian, right? But even then, it doesn't even really do that, because if that were in fact the case, then you would have a more defined representation. Since the majority of people are white, you'd have 5 white people, and then when you'd go from there. But what DEI does is something different, supposedly, as I understand it. What they're doing is they're saying a combination of, we have to have the groups represented, and we're going to do over representation of minority groups to make up for the past when they weren't properly represented. So now, instead of an accurate representation of society, you have an over representation of minority groups to make up for past grievances. That's kind of how I understand, how I see DEI. So you end up with a movie, number one, that doesn't focus on making the best movie possible. The focus, the outcome of this movie is not how can we make the best quality product we can make, right? The focus of this movie is how do we demonstrate that we are moral? How do we teach the world a moral and cultural lesson, right? How do we represent the our cultural worldview in this alleged supposed artistic manner? So we're going to make a movie, and the movie's not going to be the best possible movie we can have. On down to the bottom, when we look at the film crew, when we look at, because see, a lot of people look at the outcome of a Disney movie and they say, you know what, that ain't a good movie. It's not a good movie. And they look at the cast, and it appears that, well, the only damn thing they really tried to do was make sure that they had one black person, one white person, one Latino person. Well, look, they've got a Middle Eastern Muslim person, and they've got a, there's the required gay couple, and they've got, right, that you see that. But what you don't see that is that below that, when they do the film crew, when they do the people who are involved in the technical aspects, all of that's all the way down. That's all the way down. So the focus of making the movie, the focus of having a company that comes in and does the graphics, that comes in and does the computer generated CGI, the computer generated effects, you know what I mean? So each one of those companies has to also be DEI companies. So their focus on down to the bottom has to be not how do we have the best thing we possibly can, but how do we how do we maintain this culture of we've got to have a representation of all groups, but B, an over representation of minorities to make up for past grievances, right? Okay, and none of my conversation here is to put a judgment on anything. It's simply to say, let's understand it, and let's try to see why this thing appears to have gone dramatically wrong, in my opinion. I think it's gone very, very wrong, in my opinion. Okay, so you end up with a bunch of companies making a movie, because a movie is just not just, you got the sound people, you've got so many facets of technology and contractors and all of these things that that are required to come together to make a movie. But if all of the throughout Hollywood and all of the companies that provide Hollywood with the various services are focused on the look of their company, as opposed to how do we do the best product or service possible, then you end up with everything looks good, but the product or service can be shoddy. It doesn't have to be shoddy. They put out some good movies doing this sometimes, but other times they put out some really, really bad movies. And you end up with a product that fits a certain cultural, that we'll call it the Hollywood, we'll call it the ruling elite cultural view. And the ruling elite look at it and they all sit around and clap. This is wonderful. We've got all these minorities and we're showing that we're fighting back against male patriarchy and white supremacy and blah, 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 blah. But people aren't happy with the outcome, because ultimately I'm just a regular old guy. You can call me whatever you want. You can label me as a Black person. Certainly that's accurate. A father, a brother, whatever you wanted to label you put on me. But ultimately, I'm just a guy who wants a movie with some aliens blowing up a planet or something, right? And I don't care if they're green. You got to have aliens, maybe werewolf aliens, things like that, right? That's the kind of stuff I like. And so I'm not going to watch a movie and read the credits and research to find out if all the people who worked on the movie were of various and sundry genders and this and that. I'm not interested in that. I don't need a cultural lesson in the movie. I don't need somebody to watch a movie that shows that the male or patriarchy or the white supremacy or whatever has been overcome. I want to watch a movie. Give me some werewolves, give me some aliens, whatever, and I'm good to go. Give me some action, give me a scary monster, whatever, and I'm good to go. So the movies that are being made, the things that are being produced, and this is the thing about DEI, not for the outcome that will be valued by the general public, but for an outcome that will be valued by the people who are producing this and their ilk and their social, cultural, and oftentimes economic peers. So they get finished making a movie and they all sit around and congratulate themselves. Look what we've done. We've made this movie, we've made this advertisement, we've made this whatever, and it's culturally, it's acceptable to us, and it has all the right minority groups, and it has the right genders or lack thereof, and all of these things. Congratulations, look what we've done. Congratulations to us. It is a very narcissistic formula of making yourself look good because you are culturally superior to the knuckle draggers out here. That would be us, the knuckle draggers, who just want a good movie. Yes, I'm a knuckle dragger. Yes. Do I like werewolf movies? You got to be a knuckle dragger to like werewolf movies. I like Predator. One of my favorite movies is the original Predator, the second Aliens. Oh, I love the second Aliens movie, right? These kinds of things. Those are knuckle dragger movies. What's wrong with guys saying, yeah, I'm a knuckle dragger, right? There are times when I'm an intellectual. I got books. Smart people read books. Well, I'll put it like this. After they read books, they become smart people in a lot of ways, right? Knowledge, right? You're not intellectually superior to somebody, but if you read a lot of books, you'll have a lot of knowledge to draw from, right? But I still like movies. I don't care if the woman's blue. One of the most beautiful women to me is the original Guardians of the Galaxy, Zoe Saldana or whatever her name was, and she was like green. Oh man, incredibly beautiful. She was green. Great, give me a green paint. It's hot. Whatever, right? If I'm looking at that, right? Monsters and aliens, they don't have a race, or do they really have a gender? I guess they do. I don't know, but whatever. You get the picture, right? I'm focusing on outcome here. I'm the guy, when I look at that, I'm not thinking to myself, gee, I wonder how they put this movie together and whether or not the people that filmed it were of a varied and diverse racial and gender background. I'm looking and like, okay, what happens in the first 5 minutes? All right, What's the plot? Who is the monster? Is he good or evil or somewhere therein? Oh, what about the contradiction between the werewolf? Who's a nice guy in real life, and then when he turns into a werewolf, he's a vicious beast that can't be stopped. And that is that beast in all of us, the humans. Or I watch zombies, and I'm like, wow, a zombie apocalypse. Society has broken down. There's a small band of survivors walking together, and they find out eventually that the zombies are not what they have to fear. It's other humans who are existing in a broken down society with no rules. And now it's all about survival. And are the zombies, they're no more or less evil than other humans. In fact, the zombies, you know what they're about. But the other humans have a choice. They've got free will. And they have decided that in the interest of survival, they're going to kill other humans. They might even feed you to the zombies. They don't care, right? Those kinds of things, philosophical discussions I can have about zombies. How great is that, right? But what I don't care is the race and gender of the zombies. They're symbolic, okay? They're symbolic. Now, like you see a zombie flick and they have to be, varied races and genders in the zombie flicks. I'm waiting for gay zombies, right? That's the next thing. Transgendered zombies. I'm sure it's coming. Me, I don't really care. I just like the zombies. We're working with a philosophical meme here about, the broken down society. Anyway, let us continue. So, a perfect example, of course, Hollywood and these movies that flop, right? And they're focusing on themselves. See, here's the way I put it like this. If you're hiring one of these people in Hollywood, oftentimes it's somebody who's an actor who already is like, this person already has like roles that have made him very wealthy. So you're going to say, I'm going to go get a black guy who's already rich, and I'm going to demonstrate how I'm out to do good things for black people who are already rich, or a woman who's already rich. And I'm going to help them out. And they're worth 20 million. I'm going to give them another $5 million, 10 million, 20 million for this contract to demonstrate how I'm standing up for black folks. Here's my question. How's that help black folks? He's already rich. If you want to say, if you're in Hollywood, let me tell you, and you want to help black folks, right? Hey, I'm a rich Hollywood studio. I want to help black people. Go down to Compton. Go down to an area where there's working class and working poor people, and do something to help the working poor and the working class. Do something to help a single mother who is barely trying to make it and feed her kid. Go there and help a young black family who's trying to save up enough money to buy a house, or they need transportation, or they don't have health care. Go do that. If you want to show me your DEI, we're going to help the minorities. Go help a minority who's struggling economically. You ever notice that when it comes to this whole DEI thing, they never take economics into consideration? That's why, let me give you an example. People saw the contradictions of this during the during the presidential race. As an example, the Democrats had their, big love fest in Chicago, and they brought out people like Oprah Winfrey, and she was talking about the struggles of a woman. And a lot of people pointed it out. Black, white, all different colors pointed it out and said, "You're worth billions, Oprah. You're worth billions. And we're supposed to cry ourselves to sleep because you've had struggles? We don't see you as a person that have struggles." But from the perspective of those who push DEI, which has nothing to do with helping minorities. That's the first thing. The whole DEI concept has nothing to do with helping minority, underserved groups, whatever you want to call it. Has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the rich people who are doing it, making themselves look good, helping themselves, showing to the world that they're moral and that their cultural lifestyle is superior to those of us. It has nothing to do with that. So when they look at Oprah, she's a billionaire. They don't see her. In fact, let me add this. There's a certain level of racism to it. Because when they look at Oprah, they don't see her as a billionaire. They see her only as a black and only as a woman. The contradiction of DEI is that while the argument is that we're going to do diversity, equity, and inclusion to help these groups, to help a black woman like Oprah, for instance, who desperately needs it. The contradiction is that you only, in order to do that, you can only see the person through the lens or the context of their race or gender or whatever the case may be. So now, when Oprah comes out to talk about her struggles as a woman, the poor person, poor black, white, or whatever person whose life is defined by their economic struggle, whose life is defined by the fact that the rent's too high. Their life is defined by their she's talking about we've got to vote for the Democrats because of racism and sexism. Well, the struggle that I went through. I'm here for the working person and blah, blah, blah. People are like, you got to be kidding me. You're a billionaire, right? But through the context of the Hollywood current, I guess the term, I hate to use this term, but I guess this term has become so negative because I'm far to the left of the Democratic Party, but the liberal mindset, right? Oprah Winfrey's just a black woman, and you ignore the fact that she's a billionaire. The rest of us out there who are working people can't ignore it. We don't ignore it, right? Because she's a billionaire, and we have to go to the grocery store and look at the prices. And you know what? Last time I walked down the aisle, I didn't see something on the aisle that said, eggs, $5. However, if you're white, they're only $4. And if you're a male, they're $3. If you're a transgendered person, they're $6. No, we don't have those luxuries. The price of eggs is $5. It used to be 99 cents. How'd that happen? I got to buy eggs. I got X amount of children. I got things to do. That's the lens through which we are forced to see our existence. So we see the contradiction of putting a billionaire out there and have us tell her about their struggles. Look at the Democrat. Also, that's why I say this is one thing. The Democrats are aligned with Hollywood. They're aligned with the intelligence community. But I repeat myself. Now, you may say that the Republicans are too, but I would argue at this point, I don't know what the hell the Republicans are, because you have a traditional Republican Party that's aligned with the Democrats when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to a lot of economic policy. But culturally, these mainstream Republicans have some issues with the Democrats, but they'll put up with that as long as they can get their war and their war money, and they're cutting everything for the poor and their austerity and things like that. They'll be thrilled. They don't care about that, really. That's just, in fact, I'll put it like this. I would say the mainstream Republicans like this stuff, this conversation, because it works for them and they can use it to distract people. And they're like, hey, we're here to stop DEI. And you're like, and they're like a person on Social Security is like, hey, why are they cutting my Social Security? Shh, let's get back to this DEI. Yes, we've got to do more tax cuts for the billionaires. And you're like, well, why are my taxes going up to the billionaires? Shh, we're here to fight DEI. So the mainstream Republicans love it because they can use that to talk about and distract you from the fact that they're only here for the billionaires, just like the Democrats. So meanwhile, they come up with this distraction. The Democrats can pretend to be the good guys because they're pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're the good guys, only for the rich people, though. We're going to bring in black people, Latino, and gay people who are rich and who agree with us on everything and have the exact same mindset. We're not going to have diversity of thought, diversity of economic situation. We ain't bringing in poor people. We're bringing in black folks like Oprah, who are already rich, to talk to you. Beyonce, Megan Thee Stallion, they're already rich. So we'll bring them in and say, hey, black person, there's Beyonce. You're black, she's black, vote for me. And we're like, yeah, what's in it for me? Shut up. She's a female, struggling billionaire, fair enough. But she's a struggling female who's standing up against the white supremacist patriarch, all those words that they use to make them put themselves on a higher moral level than you. Okay. So when we looked again, to get back to the election cycle, so they came out with Oprah and she told us how bad it was. Then let me add this, and you might have saw this a while back. Kamala Harris did this. The Harris people did this, and I mean, man, you want to talk about pure Hollywood. They did this advertisement, and it was supposed to appeal to men. They looked up and they're like, hey, we don't have men. Because remember, if you listen to the Democrats, their focus was strictly dividing people into groups. It was a mindset, right? Well, we're hurting on the black male vote. How do you doing? Well, the white female vote, but this vote, they didn't take into account anything to do with economic class, anything to do with people who were struggling or couldn't pay their bills. They didn't talk about, well, there's health care, this or that. No, because let's face it, in 2020, they already told those lies. So could they go back to them? Could Joe Biden go back and say, hey, you're a poor person, can't afford a college, we're going to give you free community college? He can't go back to that. Now that's economics, but he can't do that because in 2020, he said, we're going to give you free community college, and didn't do it. So can they go back to any of this stuff? No, those lies are stale. They can't go back to those lies and re-offer things that they offered the last time that they didn't come through on, because everybody's figured out they ain't going to come through on them, and that ain't where they are. So it's, okay, we're losing the male vote. So what do? They come up with this video, this advertisement. And of course, you could look at the advertisement and it was diverse. They had white males. They had black males. They had what appeared to be Latino males. I can't tell. They were kind of olive-skinned people. We could tell they weren't the traditional Anglo-Saxon guys. So whatever they were, yay, right, I guess. And then they had, when you looked at it, and they were, I put it like this, looking at that, one would ask oneself, how could they look at that and think that would appeal to men? It looked exceptionally gay. Now, I'm sure it would appeal to gay guys, but to knuckle draggers, like, that's who we are. We're knuckle draggers. To knuckle draggers like me, to a guy that goes fishing, and my lucky fishing hat is a camouflage hat. That's my lucky fishing hat. Guys who are so knuckle dragging stupid like me that we have a lucky fishing hat. Then I'm like, hey, oh my God, let's go fishing. I literally drove for like 20 minutes one day, right? Going fishing, and I got 20 minutes from home, and I thought, oh my God, I forgot my lucky fishing hat. I had a hat, but not my lucky fishing hat. I turned around and drove back home 20 more minutes. So 20 minutes away, 20 minutes back home to get my lucky fishing hat, and 20 minutes to get me back to that spot, right? I drove an hour, burnt gas and all that. Why? Because I didn't have my lucky fishing hat. Because the fish won't bite if you don't have your lucky fishing hat. So idiots like me, who will drive an hour for a stinking hat, you know what? We're not all that complicated. We may have an intellectual side to us. See, that's what you got to understand. People are complicated. We may have an intellectual side to us, but we also have a non-intellectual side to us. And those of us who embrace those sides, as men, when we look at an advertisement, that ain't gonna get it. There was a bunch of guys. They're like, one guy, I'll never forget. One of the guys was like, I eat carburetors for dinner. And I'm like, don't you understand that men are visual creatures, right? And men listen to the words you say and take them very, very literally. And so when you say to men, I eat carburetors for dinner, men visualize a guy with a carburetor in his hand, steel, biting it. That's what we do, because we're not real complicated creatures. We're mechanical. So if I or some other knuckle dragger like me was making the that video, we'd say, you can't say that. Why? Number one, because guys will look at it and say, well, that's stupid. If you bite into a carburetor, your teeth will cut. Because men are so literal. We say, no, clearly either a woman or maybe a gay person, I don't know, or maybe some rich guy who was neither a woman or gay, but was into the whole mentality of Hollywood, put that together. But guys looked at it like, what the hell? Now, ask Garland, hey, what do you want to, we need an ad, and this ad is going to appeal to men. Well, first of all, I'd have an alien in it. You got it, the Predator, right? Arnold, like something from Predator. Get to the chopper. I mean, that's it. Appeal the guy, get to the chopper. Right? Now, what else would you have? I'd have a hot babe. And she'd be all sweaty, and she'd have like a short shirt on with her stomach out, prancing around. Let's be honest, like it or not like it, you ask me to make that video, it's going to be loaded with hot babes and aliens. And like one alien will save a bunch of hot babes from another alien, and in comes a werewolf. There you go. Guys are going to be like, did you say, holy crap, hey, look at this. Did you see that advertisement? It's got werewolves and aliens, right? Awesome. And hot babes. Simplify it for us. We are very simple creatures. We're not into that stuff. We just want something visually appealing, exciting. Give us noise, give us light, and give us a monster, right? Anyway, so maybe an X-Wing fighter, something like that, right? There you go. That's guys. Hot babes, werewolves, aliens, X-Wing fighter. Just show those pictures and then say, vote for me. And people will be like, well, I really don't like that candidate, but for some reason, I feel like voting for him. Boom, you get their vote. They don't even know why. We're not that complicated. And that's the other thing about the Hollywood. They overcomplicate stuff, right? Think about it. I go back to Predator, right? There was one, which is a very successful movie, right? A cult classic. And there was one scenario where the predator like runs off in the woods and kills somebody first with a laser and runs off in the woods, and all of the stars stand there with like machine guns and mini guns and stuff, and they just fire into the jungle just for no apparent reason. And they're just firing for like 2 or 3 minutes. Machine guns. They're firing rocket launch. Launch grenade launchers, blowing stuff up. Right? There's nothing there. He's gone. But they're just firing it, and guys are looking at it like, yeah, look at that. They're firing. Keep it up, guys. Why? We're simple creatures. I mean, I put it like this. That could have been a Kamala Harris advertisement. Kamala Harris, vote for her. And then they just show like the jungle. People are spraying, throwing stuff. Maybe a spaceship comes over, firing laser weapons into the jungle, blowing things up. And then some hot babes run out. Done. If you're going to put a black guy in, I keep saying, make it Idris Elba. Make it some bad dude, right? Make it like a football player, a linebacker, big muscle dude that comes out, Hulk Hogan type guy. You think about it. The Democrats had, like, to appeal to men, they had a bunch of guys who, a significant portion of them were obviously gay, saying things that no male that I know would say. I eat carburetors for dinner. I'm not afraid to vote for a woman, right? A very effeminate advertisement for men, and the Republicans brought out Hulk Hogan. I think we know who's going to get the male vote. Hulk Hogan comes out, let me tell you something, brother. We're going to smash something. I don't know, whatever. And he rips his shirt off, right? Knuckle dragging stuff. I'm like, yeah, you pretty much got the guy vote there, right? Wear a hard hat, put a guy, but no, we got to watch the friggin' Village People for the Democrats. They just don't get it, and they can't. So we have a circumstance where there were people that will criticize me. Now, I'll put it like this. The people that will criticize me are going to more likely be the academic class. They're going to be people who are probably well-educated, Black people, probably economically at least middle class to upper middle class, and who have bought into this concept that there is genuine good feeling. There is behind the whole DEI thing, that those people who are doing it really mean well and really want to help these minority groups. I remember a while back, the NAACP, right? Organization that's long lived past its sell-by date for numerous reasons. But the NAACP had this thing, and it was, we're going to push for more Black people in the boardrooms of Fortune 500 companies. You might have heard me talk about that before. So, wait a minute. If you are even eligible to be on the board of directors for Microsoft, whatever the hell, right? You're already rich. You probably went to Harvard or Yale or Columbia or some other vine-covered university. You've been working as the CEO of Pizza Hut or whatever the hell. And now they've decided we're going to put a Black person on the board because the NAACP is saying we need more Black people. Let's get along with NAACP. In case we get sued for discrimination, we'll be good. So you bring in Joe, the black guy, the CEO of whatever, who's already making 8 million a year, and you get him up to 16 million a year because, hey, another 8 million, man, it's really going to change this poor bastard's life. And then you brag about it. Look at us. We've got a diverse board, and you bring in a woman and this and that, and you still hit the government up for $5 billion, which they give you. And you take that money and you buy back your own stock, which you're going to do because you're neoliberal scum. And you're wrecking your company and you're making a fortune by buying back your stock and taking out loans that you can never pay back. And you know, at some point, the company's going to fall apart, but the board of directors is going to walk away with all the loot because they're a bunch of friggin' crooks, right? You do that. But meanwhile, you got a black person on the board. But this guy was already rich. See, I connect. If you're telling me I'm going to do good to help a society, right? The question has to be this. In doing good to help society, what groups do you pick out? If you say, I'm going to do good to help a society, how? I'm going to get the black guy who's the CEO of whatever the hell, Target or something. And I'm going to bring him in and I'm going to up his salary from 8 million to 16 million. And then I'm going to say, look at me. I've got a diverse board of directors. You ain't doing it for him and you're not doing it for the black folks, period. And how's it going to help the black folks if one black person gets 8 million a year, in addition, gets 16 million a year? Now, you want to impress me, go to a poor black neighborhood and take $16 million and help people who are poor, pay for their education. How about some old poor black folks in a community, help them get their, some of them may need medication that they can or things. I know people that have done this. A buddy of mine ran this organization in Baltimore. I haven't seen him in years, but he was a good friend, really good guy. And what they would do is in poor neighborhoods, I forgot something happened in a neighborhood. I don't remember if they had power cut off or something like that. And they were going around to the poor folks in this neighborhood who couldn't get out. It was like cold and needed their medication. And so they think about this. They're in a very, very poor black neighborhood in Baltimore City. And they go to the house of this old guy who's 78 years old, who can't get out in the cold and get his medication. And they find out and they help him call in his medication and they go pick it up and they bring his medication to him. And he's 78-year-old poor guy who's just living off of Social Security. Now, I don't need to know that's DEI. I don't need a name for that. I can say that's quality. There's a person who's helping the less fortunate. Now, who's doing a good job? Who's doing the right thing? The person who goes to this poor old bastard and gets them a medication so they won't friggin' croak, or the person who's bringing in a diverse group of rich people that we're going to bring in Oprah and we're going to bring in the CEO of whatever, who's already making X amount of million a year, and we're going to add them to our board of directors. And we have diversity and equity. We've got women, inclusion. We've got all of this. They're the good guys, or this guy who's helping this poor bastard in an impoverished neighborhood get his medication. You see what I'm saying? So don't tell me that I'm supposed to be impressed by these actions you are taking to make yourself look good, to create the appearance that you're have the moral high ground. I don't buy it. I don't buy this more. And you know what? I don't really care about the moral high ground. Let me add this. Can a poor person eat the moral high ground? And let me add this. If in fact I'm concerned about the poor and the struggling, then I'd be concerned about the poor and the struggling of a white family in Appalachia who've been left behind in the coal mines, who the coal closed, or their families worked in the coal mine and got black lung or mesothelioma or one of these things. What about these people? Shouldn't I have concern about them too? Ultimately, when it comes down to me, there's concern about the poor, the struggling, the less fortunate. Help them out. Help them out. Now, can I make an argument that groups such as Native Americans, they got screwed as a group and they should be helped out as a group? Yeah, but not a rich one. I'm not going to go find Native American who's worth $500 million and say, hey, look what I've done. I brought in a Native American guy and gave him a seat on the board. I'm sure helping the Native Americans. No. What am I going to do? I'm going to say, in these. How about this? I'm going to advocate to the government. We're going to go to the government. We're going to say, it's not right that, we screwed over Native Americans and on their, we'll call them internment camps that they live in. Like 30% of them don't have running water. I can advocate to the government and say, government, Biden administration, Trump administration, or whatever, this is a disgrace. Let's make sure all these poor people have, the government has the money. Screw that. You spent $500 million on a friggin' B-2 bomber whose only job as a nuclear bomber is, if there's a nuclear war, to fly in after the missiles come in and drop more nuclear bombs to make sure that no humans survive. Perhaps we could use that money a better way. We'll take that $500 million. We'll go to the Native American reservations and we'll give these people water. We'll make sure everybody has the water and the electricity. How about we do that for everybody, all of us too? But you see what I'm saying? If you want to impress me that you're doing the right thing, say, yeah, traditionally Native Americans were screwed pretty bad. How in the hell did they not have water and electricity? Let's take our money that we use on war and do that. What if you argue, well, it's not fair that Black folks lived in slavery and an apartheid for years. So we're going to go to the poor, really poor people who have been poor for generations, who their parents couldn't get a decent education because of, segregated schools. Therefore, we're going to go to the poorest of the poor and we give them whatever, free community college. And we're going to help them out, do this, that, or whatever. That'll impress me. That'll impress me. Anytime you say, if you say I'm going to help the poor, if you say I'm going to go to Appalachia and help white poor folks, I'm going to go to a Native American reservation and help Native American poor folks. I'm going to go to a Black community that's been left behind and help. Okay, you can impress me. Then I'll say, you know what? I got to give you credit. You're helping the poor. But this whole DEI business of helping people who are already in pretty good shape because you want to make yourself look like you're good, you're the good guy. You want to make it's not about helping the group. It's about an appearance. Let me tell you a story, true story. When I worked for the ACLU, and when I left the ACLU, and I didn't know what I know now, but what is the Soros organization, the Open Society Institute, right? They had an office in Baltimore. And so they put out this thing that says, we're going to fund some projects, right? Various projects. We're going to fund them. And at the time, the whole thing had happened in Baltimore where there had been the killing of Freddie Gray and the police and Black folks. And there was a investigation, and they found out what I already know, that the police were beating the hell out of people in Baltimore doing all kinds of unthinkable things. And those who had been on the streets of Baltimore and in that vicinity for many years already knew that. It was not outside of the city, out in other areas. They discussed it. Well, I don't know. The police are the good guys. I don't think they did. Oh, yes, they did. The people in the area knew the truth. They didn't need a study, an outside study from the Justice Department to tell them the truth, right? But at any rate, so I applied for that, for it's a true story, the Open Society Institute. I didn't really know much about it at that time. And when I put in the application, they said, what are you going to do? And I said, here's what I'm going to do. I have a background in law enforcement. I have a background in, law and all these other things. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together a project where you go around the city and you go to community associations and things, and you teach people this. If you feel that you've been mistreated by the cops, if you feel you've been beaten or something was done dirty, they did something they shouldn't have done, there is in fact a process. And that process, there's laws surrounding the process. You can file a complaint with law enforcement. And you can follow up on that complaint. And how does that work? What happens when you file the complaint? What does the law compel the police to do, right? And what happens if it's a complaint for brutality as opposed to a complaint for something else, right? Are there laws? Yes, there are laws in the state of Maryland that affect that are different. If it's a accusation of brutality, there are time limits and things like that on how long you have before you can file. So there are a lot of stuff going on there that's kind of complicated, and a lot of people on the street don't know that. They don't even know they can file a complaint or who to file a complaint with or how to follow up on it. And I said, so here's a perfect example. Here's what I'll do. I'll go to community associations and I'll do training. This is how you file a complaint, blah, blah, blah. If you need help, contact me and we'll come out there and we'll help you do the paperwork. And here's the process, right? And I thought that's a good thing to do. That'll work. That'll help people out here. It will empower people. And then I'm like, and I'll meet with the police departments and they have a community liaison. And I'll say, look, I'm helping people do this. And since these are the rules, maybe I can get somebody from the police department to come out to the meeting and to help explain everything. So I had a plan that I think was a good plan. So I put this together and a lot of people looked at it and said, you know, I think that's going to be good, Garland. That'll work. Okay. So finally, I had to come before the Open Society Institute people and say, all right. So I went before them and it was unbelievable. The one guy, he was a black guy, says to me, well, what do the people of Baltimore need to do to show the police that they've changed? And I said, dude, there was an investigation. And this investigation found that the Baltimore City Police were like routinely violating people's rights. And there were actual examples of many examples of them, like doing things where they needed a warrant and not having a warrant, arresting people with no charges, stopping and detaining people without probable cause or reasonable suspicion, which is little more than a hunch. So we've got an investigation that demonstrates that they've done things that they shouldn't have done to the people of Baltimore. Why the hell do the people of Baltimore got to show the police that they've changed when we got an investigation that shows that the police need to make some changes? And the police have acknowledged, yeah, we need to fire some people and change some regulations. It's not like they said, no, we're innocent. Okay. But the Open Society Institute was like on the side of always of the system and against the people, particularly the poor people. So this goes down. Here's the bottom line. Here's the end result of it. Nah, I was denied. We don't want to do that, Garland. But they like had one guy that they chose, and he was going to go to middle schools and elementary schools and teach students how to bang on some West African drum. Another guy that they chose 10 people. His job was what he was going to do is there was a community of a group from like Bangladesh, some particular group of people that we've never heard of, right? Like tribe or whatever the hell that he was from in like Bangladesh or that part of the world. And they were going to, what he was going to do is when people moved to this area from that area of the world, he was going to help them settle in and help these immigrants from that part of the world, help them get settled in, help them get into the community. When we looked into it, now this guy was going to do, and this is one of the projects that was funded by the Open Society Institute. And when I looked it up, that particular group that he was being funded to help resettle in the United States, about 14 of them come in per year. So they couldn't fund a project to go around the Baltimore communities, to work with the communities and work with the police department to try to mitigate the enmity between the two, to try to get the police to understand the people understand the police, to get the people to understand if they had a problem, how they would file a complaint, how they would follow up on it, and how they would understand the process. I thought that was a good thing, but no, it's far more important to beat on a freaking drum or help 14 people a year resettle who didn't ask for help. But what I found out when it was all said and done, and this is with the DEI thing, when I looked at the group, it was all DEI. They chose 10 people. They had a black gay guy, they had a woman, they had basically, bottom line is, it looked like a Disney movie. It was obvious that they had no concerns with helping the community, helping the poor people, helping the less fortunate, helping anybody. They wanted, when they awarded the funding for the various projects that had been submitted to them, they chose some women, a black woman, a gay person, or this or that. And ultimately they had a picture where they could say, look at us. We gave out, we're supporting 10 projects with no regard for whether the projects helped the communities. Come on, 14 people a year from this group come here. How much work does this guy have to do? They gave him free money. How hard is it going to be for him to help 14 friggin' people a year who probably don't even, they move in here with family members or whatever, right? But they didn't care. How big a deal is it? Yes, sir, there's a West African drum, and kids in middle school really need to know how to bang the hell out of it. Kids in middle school bang on everything. Hey, give me something, I'll hit a desk. Boom, boom, boom. They don't give a crap. This was about this Open Society Institute saying, look at us, we're helping the less fortunate. No, they were putting together a picture that looked like a Benetton ad so they could say, look what we've done. We've funded a bunch of, which most of the people just pocketed that freaking money. I actually planned on doing what I said I was going to do. Most of the people planned on just pocketing the money. I guarantee they were pocketing that damn money and walking. And you know what else? I guarantee you this, Open Society Institute didn't care if they were pocketing money and walking, because this was a project so they could produce a picture of the people who they funded and stick that picture in the paper and say, look at us, we've funded a diverse group of people to go forth and do stuff. And so what we have now is a hollow, superficial ideology that is focused on demonstrating their moral uprightness, but it is not, has no, and it's a falsehood, because it basically, and I'm trying to word this just right, but you know where you understand what I'm getting at. There's this falsehood here. It is, I'm trying to put forth the image of a person who's moral and wants to help the less fortunate. And I'm focusing on the image. I'm focusing on what it looks like. I'm not focusing on an outcome. DEI is not focused on an outcome of helping these groups. It's focused on an outcome of creating an image of the people who are doing this, who are making this Disney movie, right? We make a Disney movie. Why? Do the people want, and you'll hear them, they'll interview. I saw this interview for one of these friggin' movies, and they were like, what about it? It's going to be the gayest ever, the queerest, gayest. Literally, they were talking about how gay and how queer their movie was going to be. And it didn't sound like they were saying that because they wanted the moviegoers to really like the movie, or because they wanted the gay community to somehow get something out of it. It sounded to me as though they were doing it because they wanted to look moral and upright and upstanding in their cultural circles. See, in their group, when you say this movie's going to be the gayest movie, the queerest movie ever, in your group, everybody's going to high five. Yeah, man, I saw you the other day on your advertisement where you said that the movie was going to be the queerest ever movie. Yeah, what'd you think? It was awesome. High five. Yeah, and they all slap each other five, and they chest bump, and they do all of these things to demonstrate that they are all aligned with each other and they all approve of it. And then they put the movie out, and people are like, yeah, where's the aliens? Where's the werewolf? Where's the action? Where's the decent CGI? Where's a good movie? I don't enjoy the movie. And then they can, in a secondary way, they can come forward and they can show how moral and upright they are by attacking the people who either watched the movie and didn't like it or didn't like the movie. So next you go to Twitter, you've seen this, and you just say, these sexist, racist, transphobes won't see our movie. Or if you're the Democratic Party, you do the exact same thing. You get whitewashed, as they say in ping pong. You get crushed. You get obliterated in the election. And what do? It's the same exact thing. Hey, why'd Kamala Harris lose? It was racism and sexism. And these people, scum, wouldn't vote for her because they are morally unevolved. Right? It's the same thing. You make a movie. People are like, the movie sucks really bad. I don't like it. You attack the people who didn't see the movie because you're morally superior to them. Then you run Kamala Harris and you say she's the first Black female, blah, blah, blah. You got to vote for her. And people don't buy it. And then you attack them. Hey, these sexist, racist pigs wouldn't vote for her. I mean, they don't have a clue. And the problem they have is they can't fix it. You can't recover from this. Why? Why is it that, in my opinion, at this point, the Democrats can't recover? At this point, Disney and Hollywood can't recover. Why? Because they have taken a moral position. They haven't taken a business position. They are the good guys. They are morally upright. They have taken a position that says we are the good people and we're doing this because we're good. If it's about good and evil, right? If it's not about politics, politics is very transactional, right? WIIFM, what's in it for me? And when it comes down to politics, as we've seen, people voted that way. A lot of Black folks, a lot of Latinos, a lot of people that traditionally vote for Democrats stayed home because they didn't say, they looked at Trump, they looked at Harris, and they said, nothing in it for me. I'll go rake leaves. I ain't going with them to go get in a line at the poll for these clowns. Then a lot of them jumped over and voted for Trump. Now, and they said, hey, look, I don't know if Trump's all that great. Might not even like him, but when he was president, and I heard this out of people's mouths, when he was president, things are cheaper. I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a shot. I don't have a high degree of confidence that he'll bring prices down or do something good, but hey, as they say, any place is better than here. Any port in a storm, as we say in the nautical world, right? Those of us who like boating, fishing, we say any port in a storm, right? And that's what you got. They didn't say she's a minority, a woman, an underserved community. Why? We have to stand for diversity, equity, and inclusion in our politics. Therefore, we get a president that the celebration of Kamala Harris would not be about policy. I think she's going to do this and bring prices down and do that and stop wars. No, it would be she has benefited and she's a woman of color, blah, blah, blah. In some kind of way, symbolically speaking, we all benefit. Symbolically, people can't eat symbolism. DEI is all about symbolism. If we have this group and that group and this group and that group in a chewing gum advertisement, symbolically, all of those groups win. The gay people win, the Black people win, the Latino people, everybody wins. If symbolically, I stick somebody in a friggin' chewing gum advertisement that is in their race. And every couple now has to be mixed, because you would be evil. There's something evil if a white guy marries a white woman, or a woman, period, or a Black guy marries a Black woman. Look, we all know that people fall in love with various people. You know, the younger people are over that, right? Younger people are like, they don't even need, if you've got to put forward a mixed couple every time to demonstrate something about mixed couples, in a paradoxical way, it kind of defeats the purpose. Here's the bottom line. Area I live, I see mixed couples, all kind of mixed couples, right? But I don't look at them. I don't stare like, hey, there's a mixed couple. I mean, a lot of us are mixed to some extent. I am. I'm Native American, and my grandfather was half white. One grandmother was Creole. It's what it is. So what? And then ultimately I come out all mixed up with stuff. That's the nature of humanity, right? That's why you go to one country that was for 500 years was invaded and ruled by the Moors, and then they left, and now these people have a little browner or olive skin than the next group, because that's the history of the U.S. I mean, the history of the world. People get all mixed up and then they look different. But for some reason, it's almost like on these advertisements and stuff that I watch constantly, that there's some moral thing that's shown by having all mixed couples. And then the kids are, look, here's what you got. This is the mixed couple you see. I'd rather do this. There's a Black guy, there's a white woman. There's a fuzzy-headed kid who's obviously half Black and white and half white. But then their other child looks completely Black. That's the way it works. That's what you're going to see. Black guy, white woman, fuzzy-haired mixed kid, and a kid that looks completely Black. And somehow that's, and think about it, everybody's different for the most part. You've got a Black female, you've got a white female, you've got a fuzzy-haired mixed kid. The Black guy, he's just a regular old Black person. He's going to be dark-skinned, probably dark brown skin. He's not going to be like light or look. So, and you're looking at it and you're like, this crap is so contrived. I don't need contrived crap. Every advertisement Yes, sometimes black people marry black people, and sometimes white people marry white people. Sometimes that actually happens, but not in commercials anymore. And now I say the person who says, well, I don't like mixed couples. Well, I got a problem with you because you're looking at their lives, trying to discuss, say who they should marry or who they shouldn't marry. It's their business. They fall in love with somebody, marry who the hell they want to. But the society pretending, Hollywood is the pretense that somehow they are culturally superior to us because every chewing gum advertisement has a mixed couple. Just don't get it done. Meanwhile, here's the other side of DEI. I'll end up with this. Here's the other side. The other side is while you're demonstrating in Hollywood how morally superior you are because you've got mixed couples and gay couples and chewing gum advertisements, and every superhero movie has a group of diverse group of women who are all superheroes or beating up the guys. Stop that male patriarchy stuff, right? While you're doing that, you're supporting every filthy, stinking Nazi, Zionist supporting regime change operation there is. And we're like, we can see that you're supporting like genocide and regime change. You're bringing like Azov battalion Nazis. They're goose stepping around Hollywood, getting medals pinned on them at Disneyland or something, all this kinds of stuff. And so we see the contradiction that you're making movies and it's like, hey, we've got a diverse movie. What's the movie about? Funny you ask. We got a movie about a heroic CIA agent who helped save the day. We've got a movie about the evil Russians and the evil North Koreans and the evil Iranians who are saved by a CIA operative who comes in and saves the world from the evil Russians, blah, blah, blah. So we look at your movies and we're like, yeah, it's like propaganda, the knuckle dragon, the lowest version of propaganda that we could ever imagine. It's like obvious. You're hanging out with the scum of the earth. I will guarantee you that this new ISIS scum who's in charge of, who's supposedly nominally supposed to be running Syria, but we know that the Biden administration is really running it, right? And Erdogan. But this latest ISIS guy, he'll be in Hollywood soon. Oh, they're going to bring him in. They're going to pin medals on him in Disneyland. They're going to hug him. They'll probably have this guy who'll be walking around with a black ISIS flag, you know, with his bayonet to cut somebody's head off. Meanwhile, you'll have like an ISIS guy, some Azov battalion guy goose stepping around, you know, or reading Mein Kampf. And they're going to tell us that, look at us, we're diversity and we have inclusion and blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, their diversity includes Nazis, Zionists, and the members of ISIS. We can see you. We can see what you're doing. And might I add, everything's stinking blue and yellow. You know, I'll end by saying this. The one thing that I will be glad about, above all, when the Ukraine conflict is over, is the blue and yellow psyop will be done everywhere. Yeah, have you noticed that? You're riding down the streets and they got the but literally, I was in Virginia Beach area, you know, a month or so ago, Thanksgiving holiday, and the fire hydrants were painted the color of the Ukrainian flag. I was riding down the road the other day in the county that I live in Anne Arundel, suburbs of Baltimore, right? And I'm riding through Severna Park, and I see that the storm grates are painted like the yellow, and then something else is painted blue. And so everywhere you go, you see these companies, you know, all these companies, you see all these things. This psyop of blue and yellowness is everywhere. I will be so happy when I don't have to look everywhere and see what I consider the Nazi blue and yellow. To me, I might as well be looking at the crooked cross when I see the Nazi blue and yellow. It's everywhere. It's a psyop on all of us. It again shows the propaganda. So I think when it comes down to it, my final comment on this psyop that is DEI that we're supposed to believe is really there to help not the less fortunate, just the people of particular and various ethnic groups, genders, or whatever, that it's supposed to help them, but only the really wealthy and powerful ones that are already doing pretty good. I think that to end it all, I would say that this is the equivalent of Clarissa Ward going into a fake cell in Syria and finding a guy who looks like he's in pretty good health, who looks like he just had a haircut and a manicure, who looks like he ain't missed no meals, and trying to convince us that he's been hasn't had light in 3 months, that he hasn't had food or water in 4 days, which of course he'd be dead. No water within 3 days you die. But that's the equivalent of it. It is propaganda. That's all it is. It is propaganda, whether it's CNN doing propaganda, saying, hey, look, you know what I love about that? When people ask me what, it's all propaganda. The DEI thing is propaganda. They ain't trying to help nobody. If they were, I'd say great. If they're helping the poor. But the Clarissa Ward thing, the hilarious thing about that, as I said, former cop, I looked at it and taught firearms training. I thought to myself, apparently those people never heard a gun go off in a confined circumstance, right? I have, and I'll tell you, I'll tell you, when I heard a gun go off in a confined circumstance, one morning I had a 9mm. I was getting dressed in the morning, right? And I went to put my gun in my holster. I was in my bedroom. And when I did, somehow it pushed the hammer thing back. And as I went to put it in my holster, the damn gun went off. I'm lucky I didn't shoot myself in the leg and shot my dresser. Pow! I shot at the hole right in the dresser, right? Now, why do I bring that up? What a friggin' sound. And I'm in a bedroom with lots of soft stuff, carpet and bed stuff and all these soft things to absorb it in a pretty big bedroom. And that thing cracked my ears, man, in a small crack. Geez, the first thing I did was like gritted my teeth, like, holy crap, like, woo. And then I noticed, then I'm like, get myself together, and there's like smoke in the room from the gunpowder. And I'm like, oh shit. And there's a hole. And now I got to report it. I literally have to do a report because my gun went off, right? But at any rate, the bottom line is, I find it hard to believe that somebody, quote, shot the lock off. Go on YouTube. Most locks are made so you can shoot a hole in them, and you still think locks don't open just because you shoot a lock. That's absurd. That's Hollywood crap, shooting a lock off. And might I add that in that cell, I didn't see like, oh, great, a little spot where you put a master lock. No. It had a locking mechanism. But the woman, Clarissa Ward, said, yes, he shot the lock off. And then she opened the door and the guy's laying there asleep. Hey, I think there's something under that blanket. That's interesting. You fired a weapon maybe 5 feet from this guy's head in a small enclosed space, a space that would ring your friggin' ears for the rest of the day. And it didn't wake him up? He didn't wake up. Oh. And then she says, hello, is someone under there? And that woke him up. A woman's gentle voice saying, is someone under those covers? That wakes him up. But firing a freaking gun 5 feet from his head in an enclosed space, there could have been problems with the bullet ricocheting around and hitting somebody, which it would have done. But nobody is going to fire a weapon in like an enclosed cell for the bullet to ricochet all over and hit you right between the stinking running lights. But if that ain't bad enough, we're supposed to believe that this guy was not awakened by a round being tanked off 5 feet from his head, but he was awakened by a woman gently saying, is anyone under there? Is there someone there? Yes. Oh, I haven't had water. But I didn't hear that gunshot. Oh, God. Might I also add, if you're being tortured for years, for 6 months, beaten and all of that, and you heard a gunshot go off, don't you think that would freak you out? Don't you think you'd think, holy crap, they're here to kill me? Am I feeling around? Have I been shot? Don't you think, of all things, a guy who was in a dungeon tortured, if we were to believe that of all the things that would alarm that gentleman, a gunshot would be at the top of the list? Apparently not. Apparently the only thing that alarms him was when someone says, is someone under there? Are you there? That's the only thing that could possibly wake him up, not a gunshot. My point being this, it's all propaganda. It's the chewing gum advertisements are propaganda. The hugging the ISIS Zionists, Azov Battalion Nazis. That's all propaganda. It's all propaganda. January 6th. Hey, you got to vote for us. Why? January 6th. And people are like, but I can't pay my rent. But January 6th, they came in and threatened us. We're the ruling elite. Somebody said they were going to hang one of us. And people were like, yeah, have you been watching the Luigi thing go down? Trust me, we would have been celebrating if they hung you. Watching this Luigi thing, you might be a little surprised to know that when you were threatened, according to you, on January 6th by a bunch of FBI agents and feds, but that's whole nother video. But you may be shocked to know, ruling elite, that when you tell us you are afraid, we start clapping. When you tell us you were afraid that somebody was going to come in and put a rope around your filthy necks and string you up, that we're like, well, it really doesn't look like that was so. Too bad. We kind of wish it was, right? That we're sharpening up the old guillotines right now, thinking, yay, free Luigi. That's what people are saying online. Free Luigi. Put me on the jury. I'll let him go. You kind of understand why that whole January 6th business, even though it was your psyop, didn't go over big amongst the plebes, amongst the masses, right? Nah, we weren't crying ourselves to sleep over you feeling threatened. Like stories like AOC's like, hey, I was threatened, I was there. And then we find out she was like 3 blocks away. They tried to kill me. Yeah, well, they had to have a long rope. You were 3 blocks away. How the hell are they going to hang you? You're 3 blocks away. And like we hear that stuff, and we're like, we know we're being had. We know we're being had on January 6th. We ain't buying it. We know we're being had on these wars. Yes, Putin is a dictator and he's an unprovoked attack. And we look into it, we're like, well, actually, it was all about NATO expansion. It wasn't about an unprovoked attack. Shut up, you Putin-loving, Putin bot person, you. We're getting hip to you. We're on to you. And if you ain't helping the poor, which is most people now, if you're not doing something to help the working poor who are out there trying to make it, if you're not advocating on behalf of helping the less fortunate, as opposed to bringing in members of minority groups who ain't less fortunate or already rich, we ain't buying it. So bottom line, we ain't buying it. And the Democrats clearly are aligned. I mean, this is a culture. It's a Hollywood culture. It is not a culture of goodness or looking out for the less fortunate. It's the term we used to use in high school, and you probably heard this, is posing. You're posers. You're a bunch of posers, and we ain't buying into it. All right. Thanks a lot, you all. I certainly appreciate everybody taking their time out. As always, if you can afford it, number one, follow me on Rockfin, follow me on Rumble. And of course, if you're not a subscriber, subscribe here. I got to check because somebody told me there's supposed to be a member button. I think you can become a member of the channel for $3 or $4 or $5, something like that, of this channel. And I was told that by somebody they didn't see a member button. So I'm going to have to look into that and figure out what I'm doing wrong or if it exists anyway. Number one. If so, if you can find it, I don't know where the hell it is. I'll be looking for it. Then let's go on that one. Become a member. Make sure you follow me on Facebook and what else? Telegram and what's the other one? Whatever any of them. Follow me wherever you can find me, but not on X because I ain't there. Well, my account is there, but I ain't allowed on it, which is I'm about to act on that very shortly. I'm excited about that. And of course, if you can afford it, whether it's PayPal, buy me a coffee is great. That's a great option. And now on Buy Me a Coffee, you can do just like Patreon, right? You can go on there and you can say, hey, I'm going to buy Garland a monthly coffee. I'm going to be a monthly subscriber, but you don't have to. You can just do a one-time thing on Buy Me a Coffee. That's what's great. Or, of course, become a Patreon member for whatever you can afford. If not, that's fine. Just share this with all your social media accounts and take care of your family. Have great holidays. Have a great day. Peace. I'm out.